to get started here, I want to give Andy McMullen and Vinney Chopra some props here for joining us today. These guys are very busy individuals. Andy, I absolutely love this dude. He's my partner. And Vinney, man, I've had him on my show a few times. He's been fantastic. Love his book. He's got a great story, as you guys know. We're not going to spend too much time on intros because we have a lot of juicy stuff to cover here. But real quick, Vinney, I'll let you start with a quick, like 2-minute intro. Tell us about who you are and what kind of stuff you're investing in the different multifamily assets.
Sure. Thank you, Ruben. Thank you, Andy, for inviting me again. Welcome, everybody. I'm really excited to be, here at this podium. I live near San Francisco in the Bay Area in Danville. Anybody from California here? Anybody? Oh, there we go. Yeah, a little bit about me. I have been able to start from single family into multifamily about 15 years back. And then we graduated from the multifamily. I bought maybe 32 different syndications I did in multifamily. I've sold 27 already. Wow. Amazing. At the peak and everything. The biggest peak anytime I've climbed is the property I'm selling today. It's in Austin, Texas. I bought it for $34,750,000, going for $63 million. Wow.
Sure.
And I bought it in September 2020 September, and it's less than a year and a half after this one. We're selling for $63 million, $4 million hard money day one. $4 million the buyer wants to give me. Okay, that's with my partner and I. Really excited. I just got accepted on a hotel. I bought a hotel in McMullen, Texas for $6 million just before COVID. We didn't know about COVID. And then we sold it for $6 million. It's going through sale right now. $6 million, $11 million, $850 we are selling. Then I just got accepted on a Candlewood Suites over there for $14 million. So that's something going on right now. I built assisted senior living in Punta Gorda. I was there 2 weeks back. We're going to open the gates in about a month and a half. We have 55 residents already given deposit, $5,000 each, and they're coming in. So we'll be breaking even the day we open. And then I'm buying Cape Coral assisted living also. Insane. My partner and I are buying that. Now, that's just a few things.
Vinney, that's insane. But one of the reasons that we love Vinney and have him on here is because in his fund, he's got A-class, he's got development, he's got assisted living, he's got value add, all in the same vehicle, which is insane, like to have that many different sub niches in there. Let me turn it over to you, Andy McMullen, my partner at Legacy Acquisitions. Give us a quick 2-minute background about you, and then we'll jump into the different sub niches of multifamily.
Yeah, quick background about me. And actually, I would love to, what I would love to hear is like Vinney's losers. Like, I haven't heard any of his losers yet. I'm sure that there's a couple in there.
Andy, I do have one loser. I lost 50% of my investors' money, 50%.
Wow.
That's the only thing in 39 syndications. So it's not bad, not bad.
Wow.
Yeah. None of my investors lost all their money ever.
That's amazing. Yeah. So I came in, so Vinney has this great story, obviously a great book about he came in with $7. And I was joking with Ruben earlier. I came in with a Ford Escort and a lot of debt, but not quite the story, but certainly kind of starting from below zero, right? And then we kind of started in a little bit in development. I worked as a broker and then a little bit of development. And now we've kind of been building out a couple of syndications on the build to rent side. So I'm really excited to talk about a lot of these different asset classes. I've invested passively in quite a few. And so just digging in from development to multifamily, self-storage, Vinney's got 4 or 5 asset classes in his fund. So this will be exciting. And I'm sure that there's probably a lot of people on this group. I can even just see in the call that there's quite a diverse group of people that are investing in a lot of cool things. So excited to be here, Ruben.
Cool. And I'm Ruben. For those of you guys that don't know a little bit about my background, I started raising joint venture capital for small multifamilies back during the real estate crash in Phoenix. And then eventually moved into syndication, into heavy lift syndication with a partner, with some local partners here. Started my show and was asking people, particularly attorneys, how do I put these capital raisers and these sponsors together and make money. And they all said, hey, dude, you got to start your own fund, my friend. So I went off to go launch my own fund when Andy was just like, hey, come partner with me, and introduced me to this whole thing called build to rent, which I was like, I could never sell that. All my people know multifamily value add. And then I started looking at the numbers and was like, hold on a second here. Like, so you're telling me that the capital raisers make this and the LPs can double their money this quickly in 30 months? I was just like, let me spend a little more time thinking about maybe if we should sell this. And in this process, we're looking at raising capital for other people. And we've done so, raised multiple millions for the DeRosa Group. We've taken on some other projects. And what I'm looking at in terms of numbers is our investors make less money when we raise for other people versus when we do development. So development is a key part, a key component of the multifamily sub niches. We'll chat about that. Vinney does assisted living development. So we'll talk about these different kind of sub niches, why people are moving away from multifamily. And why don't we go ahead and get started? So we're going to talk a little bit about the benefits of why somebody would do a value add multifamily. I think this is the bread and butter of the multifamily LP industry that they're investing. They're going into this particular thing and they've been making money for the last like 8-10 years. But what, from your perspective, Vinney, give us a quick rundown on why people love multifamily value add. And then we'll ask Andy to do the same and then start breaking down some of the sub niches.
Oh, totally, totally. I mean, Ruben, value add is the name of the game to increase the NOI. And again, whenever I have purchased deals and people like us, they look at if the rents are lower than the market rents, especially when a seller is selling, they don't want to increase the rent. They want to make sure that the occupancy is higher and have a stability in the whole asset so that they could get a good firm buyer to come in, and they might value add 5 units out of 100, like I did 17 units. Well, in this one, in that Austin deal, we only did 41 units out of 308. And now the buyer is going to give us so much money because they're going to renovate the rest of them, right? So value add is the backbone of really setting the stage for increasing the projected income, of course, and then also to be able to increase the NOI in the future. And that's what I've done. I've done C, C+, B minus. Like I said, 30 deals I've done, syndications. And out of that, majority of them were value add in the B minus category lately. But before that, it used to be C, C+. Yeah.
So Andy, I see this trend across the country. Syndicators are having a harder time finding these value add deals and competing with 40 or 50 buyers when something goes on market. Tell us from your perspective, what are some of the reasons why people are leaving value add and moving into these different sub niches?
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, so we were kind of doing deals in California, right? And that would basically, you'd see 4 caps go to 3 caps and 3 caps go to 2 caps. And, I think now if you were to compare that to some of the crazy built to rent deals, you'd see, some investors buying those lower cap rates. But at some point it became a little bit uneven, right? So you have maybe what Vinny's talking about, C buildings that would typically have a much higher cap rate, right? So a little bit more risk involved, but you've got basically a better return as compared to maybe something in California, which is a B or A, where you're just, consistently getting some decent cash flow, not very much, it's mostly on the appreciation side. So I think what people are seeing is like, how much further can cap rates go down? And am I really getting that same benefit that I got for an A property as I am, or the same benefit that I got for a C property as I would have got for an A property, because they've compressed so far. So I think that's probably why we're seeing a lot of alternative investments. And that's part of the reason, in a lot of these markets, I mean, I was looking at some stuff in even Austin, where you've got now the replacement cost and the actual, cost for you to buy a property like that much, much closer together. So at some point you're going to have to develop, but as you know, most people don't have the balls to do it, right? Because they've been hearing for the longest time, if you're the last one kind of playing musical chairs as a developer, you lose it all, right? We talk about, VCs can lose, win, when we're in the real estate game, it could be win, 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 one loss, and we're just wiped out. So I think that's part of the reason people are starting to look at other asset classes, but they're not necessarily ready to jump in all in on the development piece yet.
Okay, real quick, before we start talking about the next one, which we're probably going to do heavy lift, just out of curiosity from you guys' perspective, and Vinney, I know that you're taking like $1 million checks now from people. So I'm not sure that everybody can relate with that. But for the people that are scaling in the capital raising field, what are some of the things that people need to do in order to change their database mindset from value add to some of these other asset classes that you're doing, for example, development or A class? How do you convert the mind? Is it more just like, hey, let's not focus on converting the mindset, but let's just get them to trust and like me so much and be so passionate in my presentations that they'll come and want to invest in me no matter what I do?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Oh boy. You know, Ruben, to be truthful, 4 years back, right? About 4 years back, I knew my cash flowing clients, 430 of my, investors who have given me millions of dollars. I started with 100,000, then they opened their wallet, more. My top clients have now 4 million with me, 4 million, 3 million, 2.8 million, and they've told a lot of their friends. The key thing was that I set the level high. So I wanted them to give 6.5% at 100,000, maybe 7 at 250,000, and then 8% at 500,000. So over the years, I've been able to graduate my investors at a higher and higher level and deal with smaller number of them for each of the acquisition. So for development, when I went into senior living, assisted senior living development, let's just talk about that, ground up, I had to set my mind right first to say, it's dirt, and the dirt does not give cash flow. So I literally designed pictorial drawing. When I was just telling my investors, I've got this really great thing, but you will get no cash flow for first year. It's dirt. Second year, we're going to now start leasing it up. So don't expect much cash flow second year either. But third year, yes, we'll give you this much percentage. So by changing their attitude, now what I've done is 5 developments so far in the last year and a half, but the new plan is totally no cash flow. What? Totally no cash flow at all until the third year, but then they can do 1031 into my next project. And then after 3 years, they can do next project and next project like that. So we are able to give now 16% per year. So at the end of third year, they get 48%. Their 1 million becomes 1,480,000, but they have a choice to take that out or they reinvest into my next project. Now, after 6 years, their money is 2.016 million or something from 1 million. And then 9 years and all that. But the good part is that I give them cost segregation loss of 500,000 in the third year, another 500,000 in sixth year, another 500,000 in 9 years. So I give their whole money back in losses, plus give them 324 million, 3.24 million at the end of 9 years. So that's the thing is, you got to sit in the shoes of the buyer or the investor and then figure out a way which is going to appeal to them, right? Yeah, so that's my new brain. I don't know. I'm sure some of you have already thought about it. It's not that rocket science, but the big thing is, with the developments, you got to make sure that they are really understanding, and it's not going for 6 years development. See, investors didn't want that. The other thing when I did the survey, they said, Vinney, where are you coming in the picture? So I told them, we'll spend our money for 12 months to buy the land, to do the permits, to do everything, to get all the construction loan and all. When we are ready to put the shovel in the ground, that's when I need your money. They liked that. They said, oh my gosh, so you have done everything before, and now I can give you my money and I can trust you that you will be able to do it for me. Yeah,
Yeah, Ruben, I want to say, one of the great investors in self-storage, his name is Brian Don, and he works with Ryan Smith and Elevation. And one thing that he always talks about is that I just don't understand people kind of chasing the idea of yield, right? The idea of like, let's get cash flow. What Vinny's doing is creating wealth for people, right? Like this money is actually going back into another deal, that deferring taxes. You've got kind of the drop and swap idea where some people want to liquidate, get their money out, put it somewhere else. Other people, as you talk about legacy wealth, they want to buy and die with this money that they've got, just building and building and building. And I think sometimes, because we get a lot of investors, passive investors, that are coming from the world of stocks and bonds and IRAs, sometimes they think, hey, what's the best way that I can collect yield? If they can change the mindset to think about real estate in the sense that it's appreciation, depreciation at 40, 50%, plus the loan pay down, plus the hedge against inflation, right? All of these plus the cash flow, you think about that as in its entirety, then it's a totally different animal in any asset class. Like, the people in self-storage would say, well, yeah, and multifamily, you don't have to deal with the tenants and the toilets and the trash, but you still have, I can't remember who, I want to give them credit, who said that, yeah, that's true, but we still have to deal with the gates and the garbage, right? And all the stuff in between, right? There's kind of negative, disadvantage. There's disadvantages to every asset class, but the idea comes back to, can I get that money in and can it build wealth consistently? And whether it's a 15% IRR or 20% IRR, if you're doing that while you're saving money and you're not burning that money on your mattress or your equity, through inflation, then ultimately you're gonna win.
Fascinating. So my wife I told her that we were doing a webinar series today. It's going to be our first one. And she's like, what are you going to talk about? And she does not speak the language of real estate. She's from Mexico. She understands the concept of wealth creation and passive income, but she doesn't know anything about real estate. She's like, what are you going to talk about? I'm like, well, there's these different investors that like asset classes for specific reasons. She's like, tell me more. I'm like, well, in value add multifamily, you're essentially trying to change the net operating income by lowering expenses, making remodels, et cetera, in that space. Now, if we're talking about A class, typically people are moving into that space because they want cash flow from day one. Typically A class is much of a lesser value add play, although you are looking for some of that in your operations to see if you can change management, lower expenses, make some slight remodels, and then cash flow along the way. But you can't do that when you're getting into development or heavy lifts. So why would somebody want to do a heavy lift? She was asking me. I was like, well, the reason is because if they're spending $15,000 to remodel these units and refurbish them, well, they can make a big back end spread. And some people don't care about the cash flow. They want that big, juicy equity position at the end and share in those profits. Whereas, and I'll ask you about this, Andy, whereas somebody might want to go into development for an entirely different reason, because there's a huge trend. You can sell these things off at very low cap rates. The renters like to live in places that they can feel as a home, with a backyard and a driveway, and with technology implemented in some cases. But from your perspective, what are some of the reasons why somebody would invest? And you can break down a couple of these niches, because I don't think we're going to have too much time to break each one down at a crazy high level. But why do some investors like these different asset classes? What are the benefits of investing in each?
Yeah, well, first, like from the built to rent perspective, if you just kind of look at it from, hey, here's where the smart money is going. This is kind of the trend. And if you think about Wall Street kind of controls maybe 55% of the multifamily, community. Basically, all those properties, 55% are owned by Wall Street, big firms. In the single family, the size of the square footage, the size is relatively the same, but only about 2% is owned by the Blackstones of the world. So part of the reason is that's new in the sense that no one figured out how to manage, properties from different counties, right? So Blackstone comes in, they buy 80,000 homes, but they got them all over the place. So eventually people started to figure out, hey, why don't we just build them right next to each other and manage them like pulled apart or horizontal multifamily. So now we've got the economies of scale, but we also have tenants, or what we call residents, that would much prefer paying $200 more to live with a backyard and a doggy door and detached space than they would with somebody on top of them or below them, right? So that's kind of it makes sense when you think about it, right? Now, if you consider, well, development's risky, but the idea is that if you kind of think about maybe how do you mitigate risk? In almost every situation, everybody on this call knows that it does come down to the operator, right? Vinney could be doing class C or class B. An inexperienced operator could be doing class A, where maybe there's consistent cash flow already, but there's going to be something that will happen. We don't know what it is, but fit will hit the shan, and that person who's in A class is not going to be able to operate with the same skill that Vinney would. But from the perspective of the built to rent, if you just kind of think about, well, let's say I want to buy an 18-acre site and I can build maybe 150 to 160 pulled apart horizontal multifamily units. They're all the exact same interiors, 3 2-bedrooms. They got different exteriors, different kind of what we call elevation. So they look different from the neighborhood, but they've got the walking trail, the dog park. That's a much more kind of desirable place to live. But if you think about it from our perspective, let's say that the supply chain issue becomes, problematic, or let's say that, people aren't really willing to buy 100 to 150 unit complexes. Well, they're all individually platted. So we've got some versatility where we can chunk them down into groups of 10, sell them to, Angel and her groups, or 20 or 30. So the exit strategies are a little bit different. So I think what it comes down to is how can we mitigate risk as much as possible. And in the case of the recent development, I'll just give a quick minute on it. We bought, a 12-acre site, 98 units we're going to build. We built 8 already. We already own the land. We already had the loan in place. And like Vinney said, we went through all the entitlement process. And then by the time that we take that out to the investors, we say, hey, look, we're about to stick the shovel in. Maybe after we've got 4 to, so I think we had 6 at the time already built out. So we already know what? We already know how much our costs are going to be. We already know what our rents are going to be. We already know what the demand is. We already know how long it takes us to build them. So in that particular case, it shouldn't be categorized in the same way that a risky development should be. It should be closer to, if there's kind of a gradation in between the heavy value add and the development, it should be somewhere in there, because we're not completely going in blind. So maybe that kind of gives a little bit color on that asset class as it pertains to.
Cool. So the developments that you're doing, Vinney, are slightly different. They're not built to rent that I know of, but you're doing assisted living development and possibly some other types of development. Tell us a little bit.
Rent, by the way.
Are they built to rent? So assisted living built to rent.
Yeah, exactly.
Fascinating.
See, the thing is, because as you know, silver tsunami, right? Everybody's hearing about it. 10,000 baby boomers are turning 65, and maybe 6,000 per day are in the 70s, and 4,000 per day into the 80s, all that, right? So by looking at the trend and the demographical shift, about 4 or 5 years back, I started looking into it. I'll be 70 this year, right? 70 in August. So I thought, what can I do for the next 10 years, which can really get me more passionate about? And that's built to rent senior assisted living. So now I'm going after serene locations and lakes and ponds and golf courses where there are no jobs, which I've been chasing jobs all 14 years, but I don't need jobs anymore. These are the retired communities. I find the 5 to 7 acre of land right there. Entitlement, we go through the entitlement. So by the time I'm done with it, I buy for 600,000, 7 acres, let's say. It's worth 3 times already in about 9 months, right? And then I take the loan, and I have my own GCs, my partner and I. He's built over 30 of these. So that's why I'm feeling so good that we could build them in 11 months. Like Punta Gorda site, we built 69,000 square feet of 94 units with dining halls, of course, the theater in there, library, billiard rooms, sunrooms, and then we have spa and salon, everything, right? Everything all done for about 16 million. What? 16 million for the whole development. And it's 94 units. But let me kind of share with you now, what is the potential of the rent? Rent starts at $4,300 a unit. And it goes with the care of service. In the memory care side, it's $5,500. So the same apartment for one unit, which is going to get $1,100 or $1,200, in the senior assisted living and memory care, it goes for $4,300 to $5,500. So for the same small cost of development, the revenue stream is so high. That's how we are able to make, really tremendous benefits for our investors, right? We could give them a tremendous returns. So it's built to rent. It is built to rent.
Fascinating. So keep an eye out, guys. I just did a show with Vinney where we talked about this for like 50 minutes or something like that. So if you want more information about that, check that out on the Capital Raiser Show or reach out to Vinney directly. However, I'm curious about this because I have a very big capital raising focus. So I want to ask both of you guys, Andy and Vinney. I know, Vinney, in the past, you have actually paid for people's funds that invest into your deals if they can bring $1 million or $2 million, which is a very unique structure. But I really want to talk about partnerships. If for the audience out here, for the people that are listening on the podcast and the repurposed content or whatnot, if they're looking to partner with other individuals as a capital raiser in a co-GP structure, they obviously have to have some ongoing duties. In a fund structure, they have to do other things that may cost some money and require managing your own fund and underwriting other people's deals. But tell me a little bit about the structure. So I'll start with you, Andy, and then we'll go for about another 5 minutes here. And then you guys prep your questions here because I'm going to open it up for questions directed at Vinney and Andy in about 5 minutes. Andy, what are some of the ways that you see capital raisers or other people that are looking to partner together? What kind of structure and negotiation of partnership agreement do you see them forming, or what would you recommend for them?
Yeah, so first, I mean, I think most of the people here are a little bit more experienced, but
yeah,
there's definitely for people that are listening at some point, the way that you get yourself in these deals is that you utilize your network and you help raise capital for people that have a track record. So for Vinney, and I've heard you guys talk about it before, Vinney's got funds that are much larger and he's consistently raising for deals 4 or 5 different kinds of asset classes. And so he's constantly, probably a fund of funds is probably the way to go, where maybe, Angel comes in, she's got a fund of, $1 to $2 million where she's going to be bringing in that for him. If she doesn't have that yet, but she knows that she can raise that because she's got a network and she's been doing her own deals, then maybe he pays for half of it or all of the documents. The way that we want to scale, and our capacity is not nearly as large as Vinney, so we typically can't raise more than $3 to $5 million a deal. I don't think we've ever done more than that. So in order for us to scale, we need to have capital partners. Now, that there are not just capital partners that we can bring into our organization that have some kind of skill set. So, we brought in a partner this last year that Ruben introduced us to, that's been fantastic. He's got a huge asset management background, and he had his own network of people that he's able to bring into our deal. And it wasn't a ton of money, but he was able to raise, let's say, $500,000. And now he's basically on the team. He can kind of help us with some of the boots on the ground, some of the systems in place. So in order for us to do, we have 3 more deals for the built to rent side. Each raise is going to be about 5 to 7 million. So we're talking about, in the next, 2 quarters, we've got to bring in 15 million. We don't have that capacity yet. So there's people out here that are incredible at what they do, that do believe in our track record and some of the systems that we've had in place, and that have conversations with people that have raised with us before, right? So they're not coming in blind. Some of the people that they trust and respect. I can kind of tell them, hey, what's it like working with legacy in this regard? So that's kind of the way that we want to try to build it. And I think the one thing I just want to add, Ruben, is with the way that we structure the built to rent deals, after we give them, our investors a 15% IRR, then everything above that is split 50-50. Okay, so that's like a typical waterfall. So when you think about it from the capital raiser perspective, if we do what we think we can do on these internal IRR deals that we do for the development, it's a little more lucrative for a capital raiser who's raising for our projects, as opposed to maybe another multifamily project where they're getting a piece of the acquisition, a smaller piece of the acquisition, and smaller piece of the back end.
Okay, so Vinney has the Multifamily Academy. I'm curious, when your students ask about this exact same kind of situation where they want to partner with other students in your academy, they want to, focus on the capital raising stuff particularly, and maybe do some other duties within that. Some people are very focused on, I want to have my hands dirty and get wet, get my hands involved into the asset management or the construction management or the acquisitions or the acquiring of properties. But specifically to the capital raising partners within your academy, if they're looking to do a joint venture or work together in some capacity or join an existing fund manager, do you have any advice for how they should structure, or maybe if they even want to invest direct into your deals, what a capital raiser might do and what a partnership would look like with you?
Sure, Ruben. In my academy, we provide everything that I've developed over 15 years. So we have so many great PowerPoints and educational brochures that we have put together, and not only, I've been doing it for 7-8 years now, almost, I don't know, close to 1,000 students who have gone through it. And people are paying me now $40,000. I can't believe it. Just to teach them for 6 weeks what I'm doing. And I've taken only 2 students I take at a time. But the key thing is that, raising money is not that hard. It's not hard. It's the thing is how do you portray, how you reach your circle of influences, what I teach, right? And then you're able to present in very great fashion the gist of the program, which is what the benefits are. Of course, everybody has got PowerPoint presentations, but you got to really come out from the perspective where they're coming from, and then how much, and go for the higher ticket. Don't go for 25,000 or 50,000. Go for 100, 200, 300. How would you do that? By getting good, solid feeding from the, like in the funnel, rich people. Now I'm getting into multi-millionaires. So my ticket right now is $1 million, million or $500,000, no less than that. So that way, I just was Sarasota. I raised 16 million in one presentation, just in one presentation. So I think what I teach in my mind, in my academy, is just take the limits off. If I can get their mindset right, they can do anything and they can raise millions of dollars, literally. The big thing is we just don't feel comfortable, talking and harnessing and getting to the bigger high net worth people. That's one thing. Second is to be prepared with the full presentation, which is very, what's that called? It's educational, but at the same time, it's very focused for them to come to decision and showing the deals that we have, because, we do have a great track record. So that helps. Yeah.
Fascinating. I'm going to open it up for some questions, see if they can either stump us or if they want to know about any particular aspect of the capital raising or the different multifamily asset niches. So does anybody have a question for Vinney, Andy, or myself?
I have a question for Vinney, but I'll open it up to the group first, and then I'll save mine.
I've got a question. Spikes in interest rates and inflation. That's what we're all dealing with all day, every day right now. How are you adjusting, Vinney?
To be very truthful, with the interest rates getting higher, what is going to really hit the pocketbook is going to be single family buyers. Look at that way, right? As the interest rates go higher and higher, hopefully, our rental industry, we don't have to worry about at all, to be truthful. I mean, we have so much shortage of apartments, and with the three tsunamis that I talk about always, millennial tsunamis, 77 million people, who want to really get and, out there in the renting space, remotely working, to be in B class assets, apartments. They don't want to buy. They don't want to do the backyard taking and all. So that's one thing. Second is the silver tsunami. Third is the immigration tsunami. So I think we should not worry about it. I remember when I bought the deals at 6.5%, interest rate. All it's going to do with the increase in interest rate, the sellers like me and others will lower their prices of sale. I mean, everybody wants the top dollars, right? So it's going to put downward pressure on, there is a softening of the market coming where the prices will go down a little bit, which will be better for us, syndicators. I think the sellers are in a seller's market. It's going to adjust it a little bit. The cap rates will increase, and with the interest rates rising, but we should be fine. We should be fine. I mean, with the whole scheme of things, our inflation is here, 6.9%. So, discretionary income and everything, but everybody needs a roof over their head. I just feel like, I don't know how you feel. I mean, I wrote the book, The Positivity Brings Profitability and everything. The key thing is in the mindset, I always say there is a way, whether things are going up or down, there is always silver lining.
Yeah, got it. Good answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great answer.
I'd love to have you on my podcast sometime, Vinney.
Oh, I would love that.
I haven't gotten the courage up to reach out to you.
Oh,
I've
no,
never had.
come on. Anybody on this call, anybody listening, please send me, your invite. I would love to be on your podcast and let you come on mine. That'll be amazing.
I love it.
Yesterday, I was with Ken Walls. Oh my gosh. Amazing personality from Columbus. And he's, interviewed Grant Cardone and Mark Victor Hansen, Chicken Soup of the Soul, and all of them, and Ruben. So many times we were discussing yesterday, we think that we cannot approach high-profile people, but that's not true. High-profile people are very reachable. It's amazing.
Yeah, I love it.
So
That's because Vinney has everybody else. Everybody else is doing his work for him. So all Vinney has to do is just, he shows up to the podcast and shows up to the presentations, and he's got O'Neill in the background just doing all his deals. What's interesting, Tate? I'm curious to see what happens too. I actually feel like, because I've been in this game for 20 years, so I think in general we've never seen this much liquidity in the market. So it's difficult to say. But I would say there's been rate increases, probably 9 over the last 10 years or so, and it didn't really affect. I think it's one of the it's one factor, right? It's one of many factors, part of it being the liquidity in the market, whether we're going to see cap rates rise. And I think in a lot of the deals that we put, even, a 100 basis point difference in the cap rate, for what's market now to what we were going to see, that's one thing. But then you got to consider all of the growth in rent that would be offset by that, over time. So, from us, from the real estate world, the community, it's about getting in stuff and owning it. And what I was talking about earlier, all the different ways to be making money on it. It's not just the appreciation and cash flow, it's the depreciation, and it's the loan pay down, and it's the hedge against the inflation. And almost, I have this discussion with my wife all the time. Any asset that we have that's not fully leveraged is like us just burning that cash. Right? It's a 0% return on equity. So whatever we've got in equity, we got to be able to get out, put that onus on the bank's side of the books, right? So we're paying less in our mortgage payments to them, and that we're actually, basically utilizing that. I guess we would call it, leverage, but it's really basically, just stratified leverage, just continuing to pull. So that's kind of the thing. If you're going to be worrying about inflation, then you've got no excuse for not getting into the real estate game.
Next question, guys.
Hey, Vinney, question. We handle with a lot of developers, and we work with a lot of high-end, large projects, and so we've kind of seen the same thing. Value add, even heavy remodel, is kind of going out the window just because of the supply in the market, and we've seen a massive increase over the last 6 months to a year in ground up development, multifamily, a little bit of everything. But like you said, and kind of Andy mentions, that space is very, very difficult to get into if you haven't been into the industry for 10, 20 years starting off. How are y'all getting into that? How are y'all expanding in that space across the United States and wherever you're at?
Good point. Good point. I think in my case, I got a little bit lucky in the sense that I partnered with a gentleman who had been working on building senior assisted livings. Actually, he was selling supplies to nursing homes and senior assisted livings, medical supplies, and he would cry when he came home because so pathetic situations and what they were feeding and things like that. Anyway, that got him excited about designing this one story, no elevators, very large complexes with at least like 3 to 6 courtyards, right? So it's all high level ceilings and every beautiful luxury at a reasonable price. So I think, the key thing is you can also get into it. The thing about it is, look at the demographical shifts. All the people are, most of the time, they're moving down to the warmer states. We know that. And then finding the niche, where you might like to, and how big a unit you might like to build first. We go for about 88 to 94 units, no more than that, because we don't want to go vertical, no elevators or nothing. So that's the niche we chose. But you could choose yours. It could be even smaller, like 40 units or 38 units. Even residential, somebody starting out in senior assisted living, I'm just thinking you could even take one which is not well run and then put together a game plan to renovate it, right?
What are your investors looking for when you kind of talk to your investors about either the development space, acquisition space? We all know that acquisition value adds a little bit more easier to swallow for big time investors. How are you convincing bigger time investors with the development space? They might not see their money back in for 24 to 48 months. How are you talking to them about those returns and kind of where are their responses been since this last year?
I'm so glad you said that, Joshua. I mean, in the COVID of 2020, I raised 16 million for 4 projects in about three months maximum, right? And I got it started. So I took my cash flowing investors. I told them my first year, no returns in this development. In the second year, we're going to start leasing up and I'll give a loan from my own money into the LLC, but we'll start paying them cash flow. And I'm doing it, by the way. I'm following through. So I'm spending about $1 million of my own money, loaning it to the LLC to pay the investors, which I told them before. But then in the third year, I told them whether we'll be able to sell to a fund or we'll buy ourselves. Because now we are buying all our deals that we are building. We're going to cash out our investors, give them their returns back, and the 18% per year we promised them. So, that will be given back. And then you also asked me I got confused. Okay, how to change their mindset? Now my mindset is what? I am looking for investors who don't need cash flow every quarter. I've been paying every quarter for the last 16 years, 15 years, but I don't want them to invest with me if they're relying on livelihood or living their lifestyle by getting that quarterly cash flow. So that's a mind shift. And now I'm going after those. That's it. So the investors have a choice whether they want to come on board or not. Then I even went a little bit higher in the last 6 months. I said, who are the people who don't need cash flow? They are richer people. So we designed a whole PowerPoint on ultra rich. So we call it ultra rich. And they are the ones who are multi-millionaires. And they are the ones who I met, by the way, in Ritz-Carlton at Sarasota. One of my friends invited me to his whole group, and I was able to raise 16 million commitments. Nobody's given me the money yet, but they are fully on board to give me for the next 4 projects of senior assisted living. I sold out. I don't even have them yet, But the thing is, it's the mind shift, Joshua, and you can really do it because you just tell them first year, second year, nothing, but third year, you'll get your money back, or you will be able to put it into another project, just like I mentioned it. If anybody needs that PowerPoint presentation, I would love to send it to Ruben.
Oh, sweet.
Huh?
Very cool.
Joshua, I got to say something about that too, because I think, most of the money that's going into development right now is through funds. It's through basically people that cannot do what you do, right? So they're kind of sitting on the sidelines. They're going to wait for a smaller developer like us to do what we do. If we can get it all the way through entitlements and all the way to completion, then they'll go ahead and they'll take a look at it, right? And so I think what we kind of figured out was like, look, a lot of people, it's kind of like, I follow basketball pretty closely, but if you think about the best GMs, the guys that keep their jobs, they usually kind of convince everybody else that they're basically getting picks, right? They're just going to get more and more picks so they keep their jobs, and they never have to make that tough decision. Because if you pick the guy that no one would have thought was going to be a good decision, then you're going to get fired, right? Because if that wasn't the kind of, that wasn't kind of what was accepted, right? And I think that's what a lot of larger markets are like. Like these fund guys are saying, well, I can go to, Austin or Phoenix, and I know that if that falls apart, I know that that's what my partner in crime would have done. So I'm going to keep my job. But I think if you can figure out that niche, as Vinney's saying, and find some of those markets that are not as, well known, or sizes that are not well known, and actually get it to a finish line by maybe partnering up with somebody, now you've got money pouring in. And that's kind of what we saw, right? We were picking some maybe secondary and tertiary markets. And then what we found was, oh yeah, now it works and it makes sense. Now we can get investors to come invest with us. So it's gonna take some, some work from your end, but I think if you go with the partnership and pick a niche area, I think that you're going to be in a good spot.
And one more comparison here, if you're considering the differences between multifamily development, vertical development, I'm talking about 4-story buildings, garden style buildings, whatever. When you compare that across the spectrum of what is it like to develop build to rent, it's interesting. When you're doing build to rent, you're doing maybe 10 or 20 units at a time, and you're leasing them up as they're being built. Whereas if you're building vertically, you have to wait until the entire building's built, and then you got to give away concessions, and you got to get, there's a lot of loss in the beginning because you're trying to just get them to fill up the vacancy. Whereas with build to rent, they're filling as they're being built, and you can start cash flowing much sooner than you could in that type of development.
Well, the other thing that I think is worth saying, and it applies to Vinney's as well, is churn, right? The idea in multifamily is maybe tenants are staying, residents are staying a year, right? And where most of our profits usually start to dwindle is when we've got to turn a lot of units, right? We've got to upgrade units, we got to do renovations, we got to do fixes. In our businesses, in our respective businesses, people that rent there are typically staying there, and they're staying there for I'm not sure what the numbers would be for Vinney's business, but for our business, it would be, maybe it's an 18-month average term for a multifamily resident, as opposed to a 30, 40, 50-month term for, so there's a lot of profits. You think about those 40 to 50% expense ratios, you're not seeing that in the development.
I want to survey the audience real quick. Would you guys prefer to do one breakout room or hang out here and continue to ask questions to Andy and Vinney? Let me know with the thumbs up if you want to stay here. Okay, so I see a couple thumbs up. Anybody? Okay, so let's keep on doing this. It seems to be very fascinating right now. We got access to Andy McMullen and Vinney Chopra. What kind of other questions do you guys have for Vinney or Andy or myself?
Well, can I ask Vinney something? Because I think we're a lot of capital raisers on the call. It would be cool if you wouldn't mind maybe just deconstructing a little bit on, how you kind of started from this, maybe in this area where we are, and that smaller capacity to kind of build. And I know a lot of it you're going to mention is mindset, but maybe just break it a little bit more granular. Like, I'm going to go to all of the billionaire conventions, or I'm going to get in rooms with wealthier people, or I'm going to buy a place next to my friend Bob Myers in Danville, whatever that is, whatever you're going to do, like to give us some kind of insight on how you did it. Because 8 years is not that, when you think about it, where we were 8 years ago, that's not that far away. I mean, we were just kind of coming out of the recession and really people were starting to build stuff. So
thank you, Andy. Thank you. My first company I started in 2007-8, but then we closed that company down. My new company, Monil, was started end of 2014. So you're right at about 8 years is the Monica and Neil company together, But I think to be very truthful, what has happened right from the 14 years back when I started building my clientele of 430 investors, they are very rich people, to be truthful. They are attorneys, they are entrepreneurs, they are doctors, and then their children are very rich, and they are Silicon Valley people, all that. That has helped me a lot. I mentioned in the beginning, I think our top investors have come close to 4 million with me, 4 million from one family. So they are ultra rich already. And then, 3.6 million, 2.7 million, again, in a lot of them in the 1.5 million. Anyway, so this whole circle has been like that, right? But when I talk to them to refer me other people, see, that's the thing. How do they associate? Are the people in their same status level? Their families, their friends at work and everything. So the recommendations I get are also rich people. Now, let me take you to the second spectrum. I feel like, okay, who are the influencers who have masterminds with multimillionaires? Okay. So essentially, about 3 years back, I got into the fold with Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins, business coach Luke Wren. He's a good buddy of mine now for the last 3 years. And he's the one who invited me to Sarasota Ritz-Carlton. It didn't happen accidentally, but we've been talking about it, how we could bring some great generational wealth for his ultra rich people to diversify, right? So we had meetings, Luke and I, to design a system. How can we approach them with all the benefits of taxation and this and depreciation and no cash flow, all that. So that's why it all happened after when I went there 2 weeks back with my daughter, right? So now I'm reaching out to other multifamily billionaires in my startup company. By the way, I'm into a lot of things. I don't want to brag about it, but I'm into clouddefense.ai, very big startup. I'm the seed round and we are going to Series A. I have 5 billionaires on that advisory board of that company. I'm into cryptocurrency big times. My son is very much into it. We are into that one also. Hotels, my other partners with the hotels, we are going big. I just got accepted for the Candlewood Suites. We're looking at a Courtyard Marriott right now, all that. And then storage units. I love storage units. So that's my other niche that I had a big meeting on Monday morning for 1.5 hours, cold storage unit development. What? Building it within 9 months. And it's got so much demand for it. It's amazing. Anyway, so, diversifying is big. So when you are talking to lots of, people, don't ever think that people have limited amounts in their pocketbook. See, many times we just go for the smaller number and our investors give us smaller numbers. So I would really, challenge everybody to start doing a 3-tier investing. What's 3-tier investing? At 100,000, you get this much return. At 250,000, you get this much, or 100, 200, 300, you could do that way. But do tier, I started doing it 5 years back. Literally, my investors started opening their wallet more and more and more, just because they wanted that extra 1%. It's amazing. It's totally amazing, So I'm just saying, I know I told my daughter lives in the city, San Francisco. I said, honey, let's join some multi-billionaires clubs over there. Why not? Right? I mean, right there. So in the Silicon Valley, there are some very high caliber clubs. And then we got some in San Francisco. So they're all around us, right? Yeah. So
Fascinating.
we seek out the answers will come back. I really believe in that. The law of attraction, the secret, the whole bit, right? You send that signal out with more commitment, more excitement, and more purpose, and people will come into your fold left and right. I mean, it just happened with Ken Walls yesterday. And he's got so many he will get Mark Victor Hansen on my podcast. I'm just a small guy. I thought so, but no, not really. So I think it's all you can build with strong people. And it just one thing gets to next, Yeah.
Rock and roll, guys. Hey, Vinney, are you able to stick around, or Andy, are you able to stick around? Or you want to hang out a little bit longer?
My trainer comes at 11:30, so we still have 10:59. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Who's got another question for Vinney? If anybody needs to drop, we'll see you on the next one. It should be about a month from now. But for those that want to stick around, you have carte blanche to ask Andy and Vinney anything that you want.
And I'd be curious, we got a lot of capital raisers on the call. I see Bethany, Tate, if there's any perspectives that you guys think we should maybe just kick around, because I'm always fascinated what's new trends, what's working. That's kind of why I was curious about how, just deconstructing what Vinney's doing. Now, as he's talking, I'm wondering if he has like low moments. Like, I'm wondering if he ever has like that moment in the morning when he's like, I just don't want to do this today. And so maybe that's in the conversation for another day. But I think I'm a little bit more relatable to the rest of the room than this Vinney has with his.
Well, to be truthful,
attitude.
I think I just look at each moment differently. I had a lot of challenges yesterday. I had a lot of challenges this morning also. I got up at 5:30 or so, got taken care of a lot of things. But then one of our, in assisted living, a very great employee and team member, I should say, wants to quit. And I want her because, she's one of the best closers we have, right? So those things happen. And I'm going to go after my training for 1 hour. I'm going to go back and talk to her and talk her back into the business. So those things happen. Life is ups and downs, we got to just take it on the chin and move forward, right?
How have you built your team out, Vinney? So I'd be curious to hear. So we're about 8 or so in our group. We spend a lot of time on kind of the, Ruben and I talking about what's the best marketing strategy. How can we get seen? How can we kind of get maybe some more of our content out? Obviously with the rest of our team, we're talking about investor relations with a huge piece, right? How do we take care of our capital raisers? But I'm kind of curious in the people that you feel that have maybe been with you or that you look for in superstars, because not everybody can be an alpha, but there's a lot of complementary pieces that you need in order for you to be able to do what you do. Is there any insight you can do on that? Give us on team building, maybe?
Love to. I think, the biggest thing is the strength in having family involved. Our daughter is VP of operations. She's just amazing. She's kind of stepping into presidential role now. She's making the best decisions and, really taking a lot of load off my shoulder. My wife is involved. She's VP of investor relations. Ana Martinez, who is my VP of finance. She's been with me 14 years. I don't have to worry anything about anything. I mean, we got 96 accounts, bank accounts, and different LLCs, and she's able to handle all that. Then at the peak, I had 153 people, 153 full-time people in my team because we were vertically integrated to manage all our assets. I've sold 26 of them already. Bought, sold, and everything. So now we are doing third party. So I'm using Bell Partners, a very big company, from Florida. Actually, they are from Greensboro, Bell Partners and Ram Partners, because I don't have that many multifamily assets left that I need to have my own company managing it. It just costs a lot of money to give the payroll and everything and all, right? So that's where I am. Now, on the other side, now we are into assisted living, vertically integrated. So I'm building that side of the business. Each site has 25 team members, by the way. So instead of multifamily being only 4 or 5, it's 25, mostly caregivers, but 8 people on the top, administration in the multifamily, in the assisted living. So that's the one we are going after. Then I work with the hospitality where we hire like Hilton people, they manage it, but then we manage the managers, right? So I only spend 1 hour a week on that one, certain times of the week, they're all planned. Then on my academy side, I have my people, my VAs and everything. On my marketing side, I've got my people like that. So that's the whole structure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Ruben, can we open up to maybe some other, I'd love to be hearing what some of the other people are working on. I don't know. This could be the after party. I know we're kind of figuring out your structure, and certainly
it's your show as much as my show.
I mean,
friend.
I just had so much fun today. I just love the idea of kind of Vinny bringing the energy and hearing what people are curious about. But I am curious, like Julio and Angel. We've got a few minutes. Maybe there's kind of things that you're running in your business that we might even be able to deliver some insight on.
Yeah,
Julio,
I'm
why
just
don't you start? What have you been working on?
Yeah, I'm just trying to soak everything in. I'm on the newer side. I'm an aspiring syndicator. I'm in the process of building my team right now. There's 3 of us working together, and only one of us has multifamily experience. He had a 45 unit that he went full cycle on. But Vinny, what is one thing you're seeing right now? Like they talked about with the rising interest rates and the rising cap rates. What's one way that you counter your investors that have maybe some concerns of these economic times?
I would say when you say investors, they are the LP partners, right? So by telling them that the interest rate is getting higher, they can understand that it means that the mortgage expense is going to increase. That's the other thing, right? So actually, we could even bring their expectations down. That's the positive part of the whole thing. And they will understand that well, because the other thing I'm telling my investors, LPs, is that because interest rates are going higher, people can afford lesser amount of the loans. That's true, because they are paying X amount of money per month. Now, what will that do? Ripple effect is the seller's market. The sellers are like me. I'm selling one property for 64 million or something in Orlando, Bentley, and I'm selling this one for 63 million now in Austin, right? My expectations were way high. When I did the best and final, it went from 60 million to 63 million in the best and final, 3 million increase in price. I can't believe it, so the expectations will be lowered. And I think that there will be some softening coming. The prices will, if the interest rate goes 4 or 5 times more, I think just 1 or 2 times, maybe not. I know some studies are saying, and some reports, it might go 0.5 basis instead of 0.25 basis for the next one. So it's going to increase pretty up, Julia. But the thing is, you got to always look at it, how it's going to affect. The other way is the seller financing. If you're going for 40 units, 30 units, 100 units, maybe seller financing might be a tremendous opportunity where there is no interest rate increase, right? You're going to just peg it at 5% or something, and then maybe even plan it so that they don't have to pay the taxes. A lot of people in this country don't want to pay taxes. By doing the seller financing, they could do it, right? So figuring out different ways to really use whatever is happening around us to the best way possible that makes logical sense, right? Yeah.
For sure.
The other thing is that I would say is, Julio, is just asking them, what's the alternative?
Yeah.
You putting your money in, under your mattress and just hope that, inflation doesn't eat it up.
Yeah.
You kind of think about it, if you were paying your current mortgage, whatever that amount was in gas, right? Let's just say that you were paying it in gas, a year or 2 years ago, right? Well, you're still paying that same amount, for gas that's now worth, 3 or 4 times. So do you want to have your money that you're paying the bank on their side of the books, or do you want to basically own all this equity and just sit and watch it just depreciate every year, inflation just being kind of blown up? So I think a lot of the, even if I was talking to Jeremy Roll, who basically all he does is just passively invest in things. And that's everything from, Bitcoin mining funds to ATMs to real estate. And he has a very kind of almost bearish view just in general real estate. He's basically said, I'm going to, come out. He basically hasn't invested anything really like he did since 2017. So he's made money on some other alternative investments, but in real estate, he just hasn't believed it, right? So he's been wrong until he's right? Eventually he'll be right. But the point is that his thing is like, I think that inflation is closer to 12 or 13%. So I'm just playing the game of, well, maybe I only get 8 or 9 or 10%. So I'm only losing 3 or 4 as opposed to all 12 by just keeping that money under the mattress. So I think you got to educate your investors, but I think that they actually think that money that's sitting there in their bank account is not gone each month, is not just depreciating in value.
That's so true. So true. Also, I hope you're also mentioning to the limited partners, LPs, that their position of 100,000 is really buying them 400,000 of the equity. See, because the bank is coming with the rest money. If it's a 75% LTV, their 100 is buying a position of 400. Wow, not in stock market, not anywhere else. That leverage, it's sometimes we kind of miss it. We don't really talk about. We just say that it's 100,000 gets you 100,000 position, but not really. It gets them 4 times.
Wow, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, Julio, the other thing is Keith Weinhold talks a lot about, I don't remember who originally said, I'd like to give him credit, but I think Einstein originally said, right, the ninth one in the world is compounded interest. But he was really wrong about that, right? It was really what Vinney said. It's compounded leverage, right? So basically you're using the bank 75%, right? Plus your investors and your residents, and now you're buying stuff and churning it and churning it and churning it. So in the built to rent space, for instance, there's going to be, I think there's over 2 years, $31 billion from funds, basically just money coming together and saying, we want to put it in development. Well, you got to multiply that by 4, right? So that's just the equity piece that 31 billion is buying, really closer to $120 billion of real estate.
Yes.
So you kind of have to think about it from the perspective of all of that is just, consistent earning growth leverage.
I love it. I love it. Yes.
Well, this has been a phenomenal first turnout. I'm not sure we've never done anything like this before, so we're really excited. I want to say thank you to all the participants that came, brought their energy, brought their questions, to Vinney and Andy. This has been phenomenal. And with that, we're going to sign off.
Thanks so much. It's such a pleasure. Thank you,
Rock and roll,
Ruben.
Vinney.
Ruben, thanks for
Thank
making
you
that
so
happen.
much.